everyone, and welcome to the masterclass session of CNBC-TV18.com presents Digital Bharat Season 3 in association with AWS. I am Shruti Mishra. Now, as part of our digital series, it has been a constant endeavor to expand our reach and connect with as many small, big, and large enterprises as possible and help them expand their digital know-how about latest technology advancements. Now, as per a report by PwC, AI could contribute up to $15.7 trillion to the global economy in 2030. Unlike traditional AI systems that are designed to recognize patterns and make predictions, generative AI creates new content in the form of images, text, audio, code, and more. And so in today's masterclass, with a sharp focus on the emergence of generative AI, we will explore the various avenues it has opened for enterprises, including SMEs, and how it is proving to give companies strategic competitive advantage, reinvent customer experiences, provide greater data security, and ensure higher employee productivity. Let's find out from our panel of experts the significant contribution generative AI can have in powering the growth for enterprises of tomorrow. We have with us Dr. Vidur Mahajan, CEO, Carpal.ai, Narendran Thilaisthanam, CTO, WNS Vuram, and Siddesh Keluskar, Head Solution Architects, SMB North and West India, AWS. Gentlemen, many thanks for joining us here today. And Vidur, let me start with you. Carpal.ai is a platform that enables the development, validation, and deployment of artificial intelligence solutions across clinical workflows. So can you talk to us about your offerings, and if you could also give us a sense of some of the use cases of how you're enabling and improving clinical as well as economical outcomes?
Thank you so much, Shruti. It's indeed an honor to be part of this program. Thank you for having me. I think, AI in general is certainly out to transform healthcare as we see it today, right? You go to any part of the world, there is always a lack of doctors. One of the fields of medicine, specifically radiology, which is, X-rays, MRI scans, CT scans, ultrasounds, all of these scans need to be read by highly skilled doctors called radiologists. It takes about 15 years to make one of these doctors, and there's only about 200,000 of them all over the world. Well, as AI started coming to the fore, there are now products that are being built to automate various aspects of the work that a radiologist does. Reading of X-ray scans for tuberculosis, for example, is now being done automatically. Fractures are being detected on various, body parts, their X-rays automatically. CT scans are being read automatically, so on and so forth. So in the future, there is going to be this scenario where hundreds of different AI algorithms are going to be running on different body parts, different MRI and CT scans, all simultaneously automating the work that a doctor does. Carpal is the enablement platform for this. Today, there are about 200 different companies building these products. Tomorrow, it's going to be 2,000. How do doctors today access 200 companies? We are essentially solving that problem. And additionally, the problem with AI today is there is no interview mechanism while you are recruiting AI. So that's where we say that we are a validation platform for AI. We enable doctors to trust AI to figure out how well or how poorly the AI is working on their specific patient population. In terms of outcomes, both clinical and economic, it's very easy to imagine, a simple example of mammography scans, right? Mammograms, as many of the viewers might know, are done to detect breast cancer in women above the age of 40 earlier. And we all know that early detection leads to much longer survival in cancer patients. AI today can automate the process of ruling out normal mammograms, right? If you think of it, 95% of all mammography scans should be normal because they are done on normal women, right? But today a doctor needs to look at each and every of these scans, spend about 20 to 30 minutes on each and every scan, and then rule them out. Well, along comes AI that can now figure out that out of these 100 mammograms, these 90 are normal. So the doctor only has to focus on 10 scans. And if you do the math, you realize that a doctor is now 10x more productive, right? Exponentially
Absolutely.
more productive. So these are the use cases that are emerging all over the world. Of course, we all here at Kapil are betting our careers and our lives on that. Hopefully one day we get to democratize radiology.
Absolutely. Thank you, Vidal, for taking us through those use cases, and clearly a lot of efficiency. We can see that generative AI is bringing in into the medical segment. Now, let me go across to Narendran. But before I ask you about your company, Narendran, tell me, about the basic difference first between hyper automation and intelligent automation. We've often come across these two terminologies and how they both use AI powered automation platforms and tools to streamline business processes. So, tell us how the two are different and the ways in which they support businesses.
I'm privileged to be on the show. So this is one of the questions we get asked ourselves. We at WNS Buram, we are a hyper automation services company. But let me start with intelligent automation, right? Intelligent automation has its genesis in RPA. So 6-7 years back when RPA became very popular, the practitioners realized that RPA bots were fragile. Whenever there was a small change, the bots would just give up, throw up their hands, and say, humans have to be involved in healing the process. So they laid a intelligence layer on top of RPA, and they packaged it and said, this is intelligent automation. Hyper automation, or HA as we call it, is a completely different animal altogether. HA tries to bring several, much more, a plethora of technologies under the hood. It does have RPA, it brings in AI capabilities, but also it goes on to bring BPM, OCR, IDP, rules engine, recommendation engines, conversation AI. So, at least from a tech stack point of view, you can bring the entire alphabet soup here, and you can achieve end-to-end process automation. So that's one of the core differences of hyper automation versus IA. But talking purely from a technology sense, Shruti misses the point. I mean, I often advocate to our customers saying that you should approach hyper automation more from a methodology. It has got its own methodology. When Gartner introduced it in 2020, the idea was that you take a sufficiently large process, you take a particular task and say, what is the technology that I want to bring in? Is it an RPA? Is it IDP? Is it OCR? Is it generative AI that Vidur actually talked about? So horses for courses. So we bring these multiple technologies here, automate one by one, measure ROI, and we keep repeating this in an iterative way. So from that point of view, hyper automation is more of a methodology. It's more like agile, if you will. And I think that's one of the major differences between HA and IA, Shruti.
All right. Thank you so much for helping us differentiate the two and why one benefits a specific use case than the other. Siddesh, let me now quickly come to you. If you could highlight some of the examples for how generative AI can impact different departments and workflows across a business. And also, if you can help us explain, AWS's approach to generative AI as the leader in this space.
All right. Thank you so much, Shruti, and absolutely a pleasure to be here today with all of you. And we did hear a few very interesting use cases of AI, of how AI and generative AI is helping in hyperautomation as well as in medicine. What we are seeing with a lot of customers today is, especially the generative AI is applicable and is leveraged across multiple departments within an organization. And the key areas that we see today is, the first one is to personalize the customer experiences. The second one is to improve and enhance the productivity, as Dr. Vidar was talking about, how do we improve the productivity of doctors? Similarly, GenAI is used to improve productivity of developers as well. And third is how we can leverage generative AI to accelerate business growth of an organization. Now, let me give you some examples and dive deep in each of these and how people are using generative AI. The first is it's heavily used in customer engagement. So interacting with your end customers, responding to customer queries, support tickets, etc., is one key area where a lot of human workforce spends time. Right, so doing phone calls, analyzing those phone calls, a lot of human bandwidth, and a lot of human resources are spent over there. And all this is very expensive human resource. Gen AI can create those natural language responses basis some questions or prompts. So a lot of our customers are using generative AI for having better customer engagement. Second example that we see is in terms of marketing, right? So fine-tuned learning models can create product summaries, website descriptions, SEO keywords, hyper-realistic images, renders, very awesome digital art, which can be used as product catalog and on your website, etc. So to pass that creative hat from human beings to Gen AI, at least partially, is what we are seeing. Interestingly, I was just checking out LinkedIn yesterday. I found a role of generative AI digital creator as one of the job descriptions. So these kind of interesting roles and requirements is what is coming out in the market when it comes about leveraging AI. As well as improving productivity and writing code, right? Software developers do write a lot of code. Gen AI is revolutionizing that. So now just by writing what the code should do, the Gen AI writes the entire code. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking us through some of the interesting roles and trends that you're seeing as well. Vidur, let me quickly come back to you. You gave us some use cases, talking to us about the implementation of generative AI tools that healthcare providers can improve their efficacy, lighten their workload, improve patient outcomes. You elaborated on the advantages benefiting both the providers and the consumers. But what I want to ask you now is that how are you leveraging AI-based tools to identify complex patterns in imaging data, improve the accuracy of radiological interpretations, and provide a quantitative evaluation of radiographic traits using technology?
Sure. So, Shruti, just to clarify, the earlier examples that I had mentioned are not exactly generative AI. They are more classification, segmentation-based AI systems. But now coming...
Why don't you give us both? If you could share some use cases of generative AI as well, and then about the AI technology that I just spoke about.
Perfect. So, on the generative AI side in our domain of radiology and then in the broader domain of healthcare delivery itself, and, I typically try to restrict myself to clinical care, right? Clinical automation. One of the very interesting use cases that is emerging is the opposite of generation, which is summarization, right? For patients, you are typically handed over a discharge summary, which has, pages and pages of reports and discharge notes, surgical notes, all of that. If, God forbid, anybody's ever been admitted in hospital for long, you get handed this, full package of papers. AI can summarize all of that very nicely into an easily consumable summary of the illness of the patient, which can then subsequently be used by insurance providers to either approve, disapprove, or modify claims and all of that. The second space where we are seeing adoption is then the generative side, where a doctor might write. We've all seen those prescriptions, 3 lines written, and you can hardly read what they are. And then, those 3 lines just simply disappear and you can't even understand. So those can be converted into, again, easily consumable summaries that can be read by a layperson and converted. On the radiology side, one problem that AI has always had is if you are going to create an AI system and you want it to be, created, you want it to cater to a disease that is rare, a disease that, you cannot find thousands and thousands of examples for. That was classically a problem. Now with image generation AI coming in, you can say that, hey, there is this, some people have dextrocardia, right? Which means your heart is actually on the right-hand side. And creating an AI model for anybody for chest that has their heart on the opposite side is very different and difficult. But now you can use generative AI systems to create hordes and hordes of data from scratch, essentially. That is all of patients that have the heart on the right-hand side, right? You don't need to physically go out and find those patients. you can synthesize that data and then create an AI using that data, which will eventually work for patients in that for that specific illness, which is a huge breakthrough for patients with rare diseases and so on and so forth. Coming to your question, which was the image quantification, there is an entire field called radiomics, where you can analyze images, you can analyze CT scans, X-rays, so on and so forth, and analyze their characteristics to predict things that humans cannot see. Right? There are so many features that are hidden in these CT scans. That, for example, there is just a paper that has come recently that describes that you can tell whether a patient has diabetes or not by looking at their X-ray. No human being can do that, right? But AI models are able to generate those insights, are able to generate that information, and thereby quantify an image into an outcome, and drive insights that are usable by doctors, and thereby drive better patient outcomes. So I can go on for this the entire day, but I'll stop now.
Yeah. No, thank you, Vidul, for those wonderful insights, and the many use cases that you just shared speaks volumes of generative AI and artificial intelligence. Narendra, coming back to you, through Vuram's hyper-automation stack, if you can tell us what are some of the ways in which you are providing a differentiated experience to your customers and enabling businesses and enterprises to embrace generative AI-led innovation.
Absolutely, Shruti. I think generative AI and HA, the marriage is made in heaven, I would say. I'll explain why. I'm going to talk about it from the point of view of an application developer and also an agent, an end user. In our parlance, end users are typically agents working in a back office system. Now, let me talk about the application developer's user experience, right? And I'll borrow the construct from McKinsey here. What McKinsey says about generative AI, consumption of generative AI is that there are going to be takers. Takers are those people who actually consume generative AI directly, ChatGPT or co-pilots, etc., etc. Then there are makers, who are people who actually make LLMs. People like Vidur's, who actually produce those AI algorithms. Now, in between the maker and the taker is a huge play called shaper. Now, shapers are those who actually take enterprise data and marry it with generative AI in a way that we are still compliant. There is no governance issue, and enterprises have upwards of 100 plus applications, right? So it is not an easy task for us to take the right set of data, create a data fabric under the hood, and then borrow the capabilities of generative AI, mix and match it in a way that application developers can benefit. So the key here is we don't want app developers to be knowing anything about ML. They don't have to be knowing about training. They don't have to know about bias. They don't have to know about the security. All the plumbing is taken care of behind the scenes. And all the application developer will do in a hyper-automation, no-code play is drag and drop these capabilities into their workflow. Imagine the power that hyper-automation stack actually gives with Gen AI coming in. Suddenly we have about 200, 300, 500. There's an explosion of capabilities because we can infuse this Gen AI layer on top of hyper-automation, Shruti. So that makes it extremely interesting and extremely powerful, and people can build sophisticated applications. And if you'd allow me, I want to extend this concept to the end users. So we play into the back office process automation industry. Now, the kind of things that Vidur talked about, we can create an end-to-end workflow for hospital management, for example. Now, imagine you are an end user, you are an agent who's working on performing certain operation. Now, what if you could talk to machines using natural language? Today, the construct between a human and a machine is artificial. We have to use a mouse, we have to use a menu, we have to use a keyboard. What if you can replace all of this and replace it with a natural language? The kind of potential is humongous. People can just ask questions on a machine and get the data. So if somebody is administering a patient for the first time, they can just speak to it, get all the data provisioned into the system. The information will go from there to the doctors, who will then look at the information again. They will add their notes. It'll go for, at the third stage, it'll go for further verification, and furthermore into the insurance industry and so on and so forth. All of this, the entire sequencing of operation can happen as far as the end user is concerned using natural language. We call this as HA Copilot, and this is another interesting area. I can talk about it, but it's fantastic that
Yeah.
HA and generative AI can actually do a lot better here.
Sure. Okay, Siddesh, coming to you, if you could demystify generative AI for us, and if you could connect it to advances in machine learning and foundation models, and also how, in your opinion, can companies leverage generative AI to reinvent and personalize customer experiences, enhance productivity, and basically accelerate growth?
Wow, those are a lot of questions, a lot of topics in one question. Let me break it down one piece at a time.
Yeah.
Well, as Vidur also mentioned, right, machine learning is around for a while. So customers and people are innovating and building very complex machine learning models for a while. But in today's time, and the reason why there is an entire generative AI buzz is because machine learning is at its key inflation point. And the reason for that is first is humongous amount of compute capacity, right? Today,
Yeah.
take it, be it medicine, be it finance, be it even retail, right? Name any field. The amount of digital data available is humongous. And we are using machine learning models to create more artificial data, which can be used to train more models. And the third reason why I call it as an inflation point is because the models are getting sophisticated day by day. Now you don't have to interact with model in alien language. You can just ask natural language prompts like what's the summary of about document, and the model will understand what you want to do, what the user wants to do, and summarize the document and give it to you. Because of this, the applicability of machine learning has drastically improved, and the entry barrier for even the developers who are not very skilled on machine learning has gone up. Now,
Okay.
coming to the next point of what generative AI is, right? So, generative AI creates new content as the name suggests. Those content can be text, it can be audio, it can be video, images, anything, right? Data points, right? And this content is generated by using something called as foundational models. So
Yeah.
foundational models are multi-layered neural network models which are trained on a large data set. Now, every model has its respective data set on which it is trained. It may have anywhere somewhere from millions to billions of parameters on which they are trained. And by these models, you can select a specific model for specific task, right? To create a text to image, you have a certain type of foundational model. To summarize a document, you have a certain type of foundational model. And as Narendran also mentioned, right, you can take these models and fine tune it for a industry specific use case. You can take this model, marry it with medicine data and start using it for medical diagnosis, marry it with finance and fraud data and build applications like risk profiling or financial fraud identification and so on and so forth. So the availability of these foundational models, availability of compute to run these models, and the
Okay.
entire natural language interaction with these models is fueling this buzz of generative AI and helping our developers and businesses to build innovative use cases using this entire Gen AI tech.
All right. Vidar, let me come to you now. And like Siddesh mentioned, that, from data augmentation to image reconstruction to segmentation, the applications of generative AI are diverse and promising. So let me now talk about AI in medical imaging. Can you highlight some of the use cases of AI-powered medical imaging?
So, as I mentioned, Shruti, right, the way to think of it is what does a medical imaging scan mean, right? What does a radiology center do? Well, the first thing that happens is a patient walks into a imaging center, right? There is a scheduling component to that. After that, there is a MRI, CT, X-ray, some kind of very
Yeah.
expensive camera that is used to click their pictures. Once those pictures are clicked, there is some kind of manipulation that happens to those pictures. And then a doctor looks at those pictures and writes their findings on a piece of paper, right? That's the full workflow. AI is transforming all of this, starting from the patient scheduling, right? Patients are now chatting with WhatsApp bots, with, who knows what kind of AI is built into that, right? But patients are now chatting with WhatsApp bots that are automatically scheduling their appointments. Anybody who's worked in any kind of hospital or anybody who's ever been to any kind of hospital knows that
Yeah.
waiting time is one of the biggest problems that exist there. So AI is optimizing that, right, based on the weather of the day, based on patient population, how old the patient is, what is the disease the patient has. AI can try to figure out what is the best time slot for that patient and what are some anticipated delays. So patient scheduling is one aspect. After that, image acquisition, the actual clicking of the photograph, if I may. Well, today there are companies like GE, Philips, Siemens that are all equipping AI into their machines, both to make the level of technician that is needed to do these scans much lower, enabling the percolation of these technologies into rural areas all over the world. And second, to use again generative AI to make better images with lesser signal. There are machines that are getting old, 10-year-old, 15-year-old machines. How do you make their images look as nice and fancy as the images of today? We are all carrying, these super cameras today that use AI.
Yeah.
So the same technology is being extrapolated to medical imaging. Thirdly, of course, and lastly, is the holy grail of automatic diagnosis. You would be, surprised to know that the WHO has now approved AI for diagnosing tuberculosis automatically using X-ray. You do not need a human to approve those reports. If a AI system that crosses a certain threshold of performance says that a particular patient has tuberculosis, that patient can directly go and give a sputum sample and enters the TB healthcare system. And if the AI says there is no TB, the person walks away. So, this is again across this value chain, you can think of n number of solutions that exist, and we're barely skimming the surface today.
Okay. All right. Now, before we shift our focus to the kind of data breaches and how to mitigate them, Narendran, if you could quickly tell me, how does Vuram facilitate different intelligent technologies like RPA, artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things, and process mining to come together and create a robust and resilient infrastructure?
Sure. Yeah. Great question, Shruti. From an infrastructure standpoint, there are two approaches that we advocate to our customers. One is what we call as a federated model. Now, think of federated model as something that you are leading with a large enterprise. They already have top of the line technologies such as BPM, RPA, AI. They already may have a vendor. Okay. So the question then becomes, how do you create a glue in such a way that you actually have a layer encompassing all of these interventions? So you could have UiPath as an RPA platform. You could have Appian as a BPM platform. You could have Abby as an IDP platform, and so on and so forth, right? So you don't want to throw away all their investments. So the question then becomes, how do we take these capabilities, create a mesh around it, and we have an end-to-end process orchestration that goes across all of these. So that's one approach. We call this as a federated approach. The second approach, which is actually increasingly becoming very amenable to small to medium enterprises, is what we call as the unified hyperautomation approach. So here we have a platform such as, say, an Appian platform, which brings in the capabilities of hyperautomation, whether it is BPM, whether it is RPA, whether it is IDP, process mining, portal technologies, mobile technologies, rule engines. You think of all of these capabilities to be meshed around in a single infrastructure, and this becomes your operating lever. So the biggest advantage, obviously, is that you have the same security infrastructure, you have the same data fabric sitting behind it, you have the capability-wise, you don't have to train people on 5 different technologies. It is one technology under the hood, which makes it easier. And so we are seeing a lot of momentum towards this unified hyper automation, if you will. This is like the MS Office. Prior to MS Office, we had Excel, we had PowerPoint, we had Word, and different applications hanging around as a mushroom, right? Now today, after MS Office became the unified glue here. In a similar sense, we are beginning to see hyper automation emerging into a unified construct here. And I think that will stay here. Even with generative AI coming in, we're going to see generative AI getting packaged and ordered into this unified hyper automation. So that's a direction we are seeing, Shruti, and that's we're seeing a lot of adoption in that area.
All right. Thank you so much for taking us through those things. But let me now shift focus to the kind of data breaches that might happen with generative AI and how one can mitigate them. So Siddesh, let me quickly come to you. As generative AI tools often require access to data, the tools may be vulnerable to data breaches, resulting in unauthorized access or disclosure of sensitive user information. So tell us, what are some ways that one can do to mitigate data security and privacy to discourage potential misuse of personal data?
So Shruti, that's a very interesting question, and something that we should everybody in the organization should very closely take a look at. Generally speaking, wherever there is large amount of data, there is always a risk of security vulnerability, and we can only mitigate that by putting a proactive plan, right? So in generative AI, where we deal with billions of parameters, right, security is of paramount importance. And there are certain basic hygiene steps that we need to put in place. The first is start with educating your team, right? Make sure that your team is aware of their data policies. They do not upload confidential data or personally identifiable information or any sensitive data on any third-party APIs or large learning models. That's number one. Second is also take a look at on the data set on which the large-scale learning model is trained. So every LLM is trained on certain data set. So take a look on what that data set is. This data set is available in the data sheet of that LLM or the documentation of LLM. Take a look at that. Next is set up some proactive things like logging and monitoring your model. So now this model is trained on large data. It's very difficult to predict what the outcome of a response would be, right? So you need to have some safety checkers in place wherever things like some abusive words or some offensive responses, all those things are automatically filtered in output. If there is any personal data which is leaked, like PAN card, Aadhaar number, name, addresses, those are identified and masked as outcome. All these things we have to put in place as best practices, leveraging hyper automation and setting up these rules and parameters, as Narendran also mentioned, is a good way to set up these practices.
Okay.
Shruti, if I may add to what Siddesh mentioned, is it okay?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. So what we're also seeing is, we are seeing customers asking, they want to bring their own models. We are seeing the proliferation of large LLMs, and especially, you have hyper automation as the glue here, right? So customers want to bring their own models, number one. Number two, from a data privacy and breach point of view, we are beginning to see customers asking, can we take the model and keep it closer to the data? Now, companies like Cohere, for example, are offering LLMs. And Llama 2 is a great example of open source LLMs. So we are going to see situations where your model can be co-hosted along with your data. And I think that is another reflection of how we can solve data privacy issues without having to leave your tenant environment. So just thought of adding that, Shruti, because data privacy is everywhere. We're getting it time and again. So yeah.
Absolutely. I was about to ask you this question, but you've already answered. So let me now go across to Vidur. Vidur, in healthcare, data security threat is always a concern as patient healthcare information is particularly sensitive. So how are the artificial intelligence tools assisting you to ensure that data security is paramount?
The interesting thing is, Shruti, every coin has two sides, right? While AI, especially generative AI, is extremely useful in preventing preventing attacks. It is probably also going to be the most powerful tool to enable attacks, right? Because we are lucky to be working with KPMG as our managed security service provider. So we essentially outsource all of our stress, if I may, to them. But what we are seeing is that there are two types of threats that emerge. There are threats that people have seen before, and then there are threats that have not been seen before. I think AI is helping address this second category, right? Where what are potential threats that can emerge, and how do you build your systems to be robust and resilient? For them from the get-go. Secondly, how AI is going to make phishing and similar scams much more difficult to handle also remains to be seen. And of course, on the technical side, on data flow, etc., there's a bunch of AWS services that I'm sure everybody across the planet uses to protect their data. But for me, as a business owner, as somebody who worries a lot about handling client data, AI has both sides, right? It makes while it might make my data more secure, it also makes a average hacker into a very good hacker. So
Yeah.
It's very interesting. We'll see how this plays out.
Absolutely. All right, interesting points made there. Final question, and it's for all three of you, that while artificial intelligence is quickly becoming a new tool for companies to drive revenues and profitability, it's also become increasingly important for them to ensure its careful management to prevent unintentional but significant damage. So how can enterprises build generative AI responsibly? What should they keep in mind? Siddesh, why don't you go first?
Making an average hacker a great hacker, the way Gen AI is helping and augmenting the capabilities of our developers or our marketeers or our content creators, the same it's doing for our hackers and our malicious intentions also, right? So few things that we see Gen AI may impact is first is copyrights, plagiarism. Right, this is continuously coming up. The text and the things generated by AI are so close to humans. So I think it's next is right now Gen AI is generating data which is used to train more models. So the entire context of what is real data versus what is artificial data, those lines are getting blurred, right? Another thing is the amplification of existing biases. These large-scale models are trained on certain data which may have some biases. Now, if you use the same data to train more models, those biases get amplified. So things like these can be potential problems to worry about, and we will have to be more responsible. It still needs human intervention to monitor what is safe use of output of a Gen AI versus what is not safe for use output of Gen AI. So by monitoring the model output, by making sure there is a human pair of eyes or at least some vigilance on the outputs, I think we will have to set up those processes. These things will definitely evolve over time, I believe.
Okay, all right. Narendran, quickly, your thoughts on how can companies build generative AI responsibly?
Sure, yeah. I think Siddesh talked about quite a few of the areas, so I don't want to repeat them. I will probably tag along. One of the things when we deal with generative AI is the fact that these LLMs do not give us confidence scores. So that's a big departure from how AI/ML used to be. So when a mission says something, we're entering into a probabilistic area. We're not in a deterministic area like old software. Software works or doesn't work. With AI, it depends on the data. And so when missions actually say something, but you do not know to what degree or accuracy, with which the mission actually says that, we are in a fuzzy domain here. So I would call the era we are in as augmented intelligence. So here is where a lot of work that we do puts the power back into humans, the agents that we talked about. We are empowering the agent. if it's a call center agent, we talked about summarization, we talked about extraction, we talked about, questions such as, say somebody is raising a ticket to say my laptop has failed. The agent can then have a conversation and say, can you check the database and see if it is within warranty? Or go to Amazon and check if the price point. Conversationally today, agents can empower all these things. But again, control has to be given back to the agent so that at the end of the day, the decision is taken by the user, and we don't 100% rely on machines to actually go through a straight through process.
Absolutely.
I think we need to be a little careful there. Is the point, Shruti? Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I'm saying human intervention is needed.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I think we're in the augmented intelligence area. We're not in the autonomous zone yet. I think having an understanding of this is going to play a big role in the way we design applications. Shruti, that's something I would like to add here.
Okay. All right. Final words, Vidur.
I think healthcare is probably the epitome of AI, healthcare delivery, essentially, right? It is, I think of AI in terms of low implication AI and high implication AI, right? Low implication in our domain is billing and scheduling and appointment management, all of those things. High implication is, does this patient have cancer or not, or should I give chemotherapy to this patient or not? Those kind of, or when will this patient die? Like literally, like what is the 24-hour death probability of a patient? So we need to have horses for courses. Over regulating something that is low implication can have its own issues, and under regulating something that has high implications is certainly not a good thing. So I think in summary, we should all be extremely optimistic, but cautiously temper our optimism based on the implications of what it is that the AI is going to be used for, right? If you're making a brochure, maybe if it's instead of blue, it's purple, that's fine, right? But if you're making a patient's, treatment protocol, or if it's a self-driving car that has to decide, which direction to turn in, extremely high implication application. So it's no size.
Optimism.
Exactly.
All right. On that note, it's time for me to wrap up. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing your expert insights and providing us with the in-depth knowledge of how businesses of all sizes and sectors can be transformed through generative AI. It was an absolute pleasure speaking to all of you, and many thanks for joining. Moving on, we now have a very special address by Abhishek Sarolia, Solutions Architect, AWS, who will shed light on the current advancements in generative AI and how AWS can be an enabler for your business when building generative AI applications.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining AWS Digital Bharat Masterclass session. I'm Abhishek Sarolia, and I'm part of Solution Architecture team here at Amazon Web Services. Today, I'm super excited to talk about some of the current advancement in AI space, which I believe will continue to fuel the innovation for years to come. In this session, I'll briefly talk about the generative AI landscape in general and how AWS can help you to accelerate building generative AI applications at scale. So let's dive in. It will not be an exaggeration if I say that AI is currently at an inflection point, and the recent advancements in this space making it one of the most disruptive set of technologies. Now, I'm sure if you're not hidden behind some kind of a rock, then you must have heard or have a first-hand experience using some of these recent technology advancements. Now, generative AI using machine learning is not a new technology. It's there in existence from long, but mainly used by large tech companies and researchers behind the closed doors. However, with the release of public-facing versions of ChatGPT, Midjourney, and Stability AI has truly democratized the access to this technology for general public. Its out-of-the-box accessibility makes generative AI different from all AI that came before it. Now, users don't need a degree in machine learning to interact with or derive value from it. Having said that, it's important to understand that generative AI is not just limited to conversational bots. Its use case and potential span across business domains from text summarization, insight generation, Q&A, image generation, and many more. I'm sure if you haven't got a chance to understand about generative AI before, you might be wondering why there is so much buzz around this technology. Generative AI is a type of AI that can create new content and ideas, including conversations, stories, images, videos, and music. Like all AI, generative AI is powered by machine learning models. However, these models are trained on vast amount of internet scale data and also called as foundational models. Let's take a step back and understand how these foundational models differ from traditional way of doing machine learning. In traditional machine learning, you train typical models for specific task types like summarization, insight generation, and conversational bots. Foundational models, on the other hand, are trained on internet scale data in varied form and patterns, because of which these models are able to learn complex concepts and apply their knowledge within a wide range of contexts. While the capabilities and resulting possibilities of a pre-trained foundational models are amazing, customers are really excited because they can generally apply these learnings and customize it to their own domain-specific functions, using only a small fraction of data and compute required to train a model from scratch. So for your business, you can now take advantage of machine learning more quickly and apply it to a broader set of use cases. You can apply generative AI across all lines of businesses, including engineering, marketing, customer service, finance, and sales. Developers can get code suggestions to improve productivity and develop applications faster. Marketing teams can create ad copy and stunning visuals in minutes using natural language instructions. Customer service departments can transform call centers using generative AI powered chatbots to answer customer questions with conversational interfaces. Finance teams can produce reports to summarize financial results tailored to different business units. Today, machine learning and AI play a critical role in every business strategy in one form or another. At Amazon, we have been at the forefront of this machine learning evolutions from the start. Through many of our different businesses like Amazon Retail, Alexa, Amazon Go, Amazon Air, and many others. What we at Amazon do best is apply AI to real-world applications at scale. From Alexa to Prime Air drones and Amazon Go no checkout line stores, we have been using AI to find practical solutions to a variety of business problems. At AWS, our mission is to democratize AI by offering this AI technologies to customers as services. We are taking the same democratizing approach towards generative AI. To support our missions, we have launched generative AI capabilities for all type of user personas in this space. And we are continuing to push the envelope further with new path-breaking innovations every day. When we think of AI ML at AWS, we think of it in a 3-layered stack and offer services to serve the needs of different customers with different personas. At the top layer, we have flexible AI services that enable customers with consumer personas to infuse intelligence in their application with simple API integrations without worrying about the underlying models and required infrastructure. The second layer of this stack is designed for customers with tuner personas who wants to tune their own machine learning models. This is where Amazon SageMaker service resides. Amazon SageMaker is a fully managed machine learning service that has capabilities and features spanned across the entire lifecycle of a machine learning workflow. At the bottom of this stack, we have the core infrastructure and machine learning framework layer. Services in this layer is used by customers with provider personas who wants to develop latest generation of models in the framework of their choice, utilizing the broadest and deepest portfolio of machine learning infrastructure services with a choice of processors and accelerators to meet unique performance and budget needs. AWS is innovating and adding generative AI services continuously to meet the needs of all the 3 different consumer personas across all the 3 layered stacks. We are focused on making AWS as the easiest place to leverage AI and machine learning for our customers. Let's double-click to know more about these services. For model consumers, we launched Amazon Bedrock that makes foundational models from Amazon and leading AI startups, including AI21 Labs, Anthropic, Cohere, and Stability AI, accessible via an API. We are also working to deploy game-changing applications with built-in generative AI capabilities, services such as Amazon Code Whisperer, which is an AI coding companion that can help you improve productivity. Bedrock is the easiest way for customers to build and scale generative AI applications using foundational models. With Bedrock, fully managed serverless experience, customers can get started quickly with a range of foundational models. Customer can securely and privately customize available foundational models with their own data and integrate and deploy the foundational models into their application without managing any infrastructure. Amazon Bedrock is the first and only service that offers industry-leading foundational models from AI21 Labs, Anthropic, Cohere, Stability AI, and Amazon as an API interface. With Bedrock, all deployed models remain private for each customer. The service includes AWS proven security capabilities like private link, IAM role-based access control, and KMS encryption. Amazon Code Whisperer, an AI coding companion, is trained on billions of lines of Amazon and open source code that helps you to quickly write secure code by generating whole line and full function code suggestions in your IDE in real time, based on your natural language comments in surrounding code. Amazon Code Whisperer works right from the developer's IDE and supports all the major programming languages out there. It's a general purpose coding companion that is also fine-tuned to provide high-quality suggestions for AWS services. In addition to that, Amazon Code Whisperer helps you to easily meet the software copyright and license attributions with intelligent reference tracking capabilities. It also helps you to scan code for hard-to-find vulnerabilities, such as those in the top 10 open web application security projects. Amazon SageMaker Foundation Model Hub is a feature of SageMaker Jumpstart, which is a model hub where you get all the state-of-the-art models for deep learning models that are tailored for a wide range of advanced text and image generation use cases. Amazon SageMaker Jumpstart offers several open source as well as proprietary generative AI models from leading model hubs like Hugging Face and independent providers alike, with just a one-click deploy option and a flexibility for secure and easy customization. For model providers, we are adding capabilities such as purpose-built ML accelerator for best price performance while running machine learning training and inferencing in the cloud. Whatever customers are trying to do with foundational models, running them, building them, customizing them, they need the most performant, cost-effective infrastructure that is purpose-built for machine learning. Over the last 5 years, AWS has been investing in our own silicon to push the envelope on performance and price for extremely demanding workloads like machine learning training and inference. And our AWS Trainium and AWS Inferentia chips offer the lowest cost for training models and running inference in the cloud.
Thank you, Abhishek. That was indeed very interesting and enlightening. And on that note, I would like to thank everybody once again for joining us today at this very special masterclass. Many thanks for watching.